And now we have our final presentation for today from Karen Carr-Crawford.
So for those who I don't know, and I don't know a lot of you here, I am a growth strategist. I've been in business for 23 years as a consultant working with mid-sized to larger businesses, helping them grow by doing things like KPIs, strategic planning, business planning, et cetera. I also work with small businesses, with startups, and I do what I call a startup launch kit. So I have some of that. That's one bucket. So I work with private clients, and I work within economic development programs. So I've had a lot of experience over the years with the SBDCs, SBA program delivery, et cetera. I also have the honor of working with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, and I am currently, there are two initiatives. That's the Legacy Program, but I'm also working with the 1 Million Black Women, Black in Business, and we are in cohort 2 now out of New York. So that's an exceptionally exciting program that's focused on helping Black women grow and scale. So I'm happy to be a part of that as well. But what I want to talk about today is really scaling business. You have had some wonderful information from the panel, the group, my friend over here, tell me your name again, I'm sorry, Pia. Pia, yeah, you guys did an awesome job. Then we just had Lakeisha give us some great information. So I kind of want to pull all of it together. And really I'm talking at a macro level. So I'm assuming that all of you have been successfully doing your thing and you've gone through the programs here in the city and you're ready now to look at your business at a different level. So we want to talk about scaling. And we want to talk about what scaling really means when you're trying to move a business forward and take your business to the next level, right? I'm just going to move this here. So what I hope to do with you this afternoon in a very short time is to really get you to understand what components are required to scale a business, what you need to do, what you need to document, and why certain things are really important when we start talking about scaling and moving forward, okay? And stop me if you have any questions at all. So let's start. What does it mean to be sustainable? We talk about sustainable. I talk about a sustainable business. What does that mean? Does that resonate with anybody? Yes. Constant streams of income, okay. Who else? Anybody have any idea about sustainable? Anybody else? What was that? Staying afloat. Okay, very good. Okay, so growth. It means we're growing in some way. What does it mean to scale? Streamline? Okay, who else? Anybody else? Scaling. What does that mean when you hear scaling? Anybody have any ideas?
Taking what you're currently doing and put it on a bigger scale, make it producing a bigger product, a more robust product, something that has a large return on investment.
Very good. She said something that was really good. Large return on investment. That was very good. She said we're growing and having a. No, that's what we're going to talk about. Growth versus. Are you guys seeing this? Okay, growth versus scaling. So when companies grow, they're increasing their revenue exactly as fast as they're adding resources. So we want to grow at some point, but at a secondary point, we want to start scaling up, right? So scaling, and this is HubSpot's definition, means that you're able to increase your sales, your work, whatever it is whatever your output is, but you're managing your cost and you're managing your expenses, right? So that's what scaling is. We want to grow, we want to continue to build up, have more revenue, but we want to maintain our costs and our expenses at a certain rate. And that's what scaling really is about. Keeping those, we don't want to keep growing revenue and keep having to hire new people each and every time, okay? So these are some of the things we want to just kind of get under belt, that we want to think about scaling up and looking at it from this kind of definition. So these are some of the components of scaling, excuse me for the P's, that we need to think about, right? When we start talking about scaling. And when I say scaling, I mean we want to have documentable plans that we can utilize to direct our our employees, direct our hires, whether they're contractors or employees. We want to make sure we've got evidence of what it is we do. And so these are some of the key components, and I'm going to give you a little exercise to look at some things. We need to know the customer. Who are we selling to, right? We need to have a sales management system in place, meaning an overall selling process, whether it's about lead generation, whether it's who our sales staff is, who's responsible for incoming, who's responsible for outbound. We need to have some sense of profitability. We heard about profitability earlier. We need to understand what that means in our industry, what those benchmarks look like, and why it's important. So we need to be profitable. We also need to be able to hire people. Oops. We need to be able to hire people to keep our business scaling up. We've got to have the right people in place, and then we've got to have automation. We need to have process automation. So we've got to have pieces in place to make sure our company, if we step away from it, it can still run, right? We've got everything we need to make it run. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's talk about the customer and understanding why it's important to have ideal customer criteria. Why do you guys think it's important to understand who our customer is? Got to know who we're selling to. Can't survive without a customer, but is everyone who buys from you necessarily a customer? Maybe, possibly, maybe. We got to define them a little bit. They got to be a loyal customer, but as long as they're buying something. Well, this is what we want. We want to get to the ideal customer. We want to have the ideal customer. We want to know who that person is, male, female, whatever they are, because we want them to buy from us again and again and again. This is how we talk about sustainability and scaling up. We want to target in on that customer. There was some conversation in the panel about, target market and all that, but we want to make sure we're very clear about how we are reaching those folks. So I want to have you look at, I have a little exercise for you in a minute, but a couple of things we want to think about when we start talking about customers. We need to identify the market. We need to define those market segments and then build out the personas. Has anybody done that for their businesses? Do you know what those markets, yes? A little bit, okay. What did you determine?
So for me, I'm actually a service business
Okay.
to nonprofits. So I determined that there's actually quite a large potential market.
Okay.
But they're not a very well-funded market.
Ah.
Because they are nonprofits who are usually struggling. That I would go to another part of the market could be people who fund nonprofits.
Ooh, very good. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
selling to them directly instead.
Okay.
To
Oh,
support the people that they fund.
okay. So she's identified some alternative markets, and is that B2B or B2C, or what are they?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Ooh.
Because as a service, it would still be B2C, I think.
Okay.
Because it would be my consulting business. The ultimate end user is still the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
The one receiving the service. The funders paying for it.
Okay.
Do you use that same terminology in a service business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So B2C means business to consumer. B2B is business to business. We can also use B2G, business to government. We can use B2E, business to education sector. I've heard, all of those used. Okay. So think about who your market is. We want to define those segments, and we want to build out some of those personas. So this is what we need to think about. What do they do? We need to have some big, broad analysis of who these customers are so that we can target to them repeatedly. What do they do throughout the day? What are their pain points? What solutions are you solving for them in business? What will motivate them to make a purchase? And most importantly, is the customer the decision maker or the user or both? Right? Because that determines how your messages are going to get into them. Okay? And we all know that, toy makers and products, kids' toys, they market to kids, but the kids aren't the decision makers. They just go to the parents and say, hey, mom, dad, I want this. It's the best thing. And, it comes on on in the middle of the afternoon, the commercials come on when the kids get home from school or wherever they are, and so then they go tell the parents, but they really aren't the decision makers, right? So these are things you need to think about. What do they do? We need to meet the customer where they're at. We need to understand more about their motivations, what they do throughout the day, right? So, here's an example. Hopefully you can see this. This is a customer persona for Trina's Hair Salon. She operates in one segment, B2C. She deals with customers, right? Customers come to her salon. She's a salon owner with focus on braids and locks. Most of her clients are female, 38 to 50, busy, committed to self-care, fashion savvy, professionals. They look to social media for their most recent trends. Trina is also a part-time celebrity stylist. So this tells us a lot about Trina and her first segment and who she's marketing to, right? So this is the kind of analysis you want to do with the customer. Why do we do this? Because we want these people to buy from us over and over and over again. We just want one time. We want the folks to keep coming. So then Trina also has a B2B segment. Trina is an educator. So she delivers education, training to stylists who want to provide braids and locks. These stylists are new to this type of hairstyle, so that tells her what she's got to really do some deep messaging. They're new to this. They may be women who are women of color, but they're new to it. Her training is web-based, starts at $7.95 for 1 hour, a week, 4 hours. She will follow up with Zoom at $100 an hour, etc. So Trina's got these revenue streams coming from both B2B and B2C. So this is the kind of analysis I want to encourage you to do so that you have a better sense of how to reach your people, okay? And I gave you a handout here. And, did you get one? What I want you to look at, we have a little exercise, and I guess it's on, it looks like the second page of it. We've got a little cheat sheet on your customer, defining your customer. Something just to make this more interactive. I want you to take a minute and write a brief description of your customer persona. Just notes. You don't have, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just jot some words, notes down on your customer persona. It could be either just one of your market segments, because you may have several market segments. Yes? Oh. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. Take a few minutes. And then we'll hear from some of you just to make sure you're understanding how detailed this needs to be and why it is as detailed as it is. I want you to have repeat customers. I want people to keep coming over and over again. We're talking about scaling up. Scale up, we're being very proactive about going after our customers, okay? Give you 2 more minutes on that. Oh, I do. Won't take 8 minutes, we'll just take another minute. Okay, let's hear from some of you. Again, I'm not looking for perfection, just some good answers around who your customer is. So often we just assume that whoever buys from us is our customer, and that's not necessarily the case all the time. Let's hear from some of you. Who is your, how have you defined this persona? My friend here in the front.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
Parents, guardian, teachers, and what specifically about parents, guardians, teachers, because you just don't want to reach out to every parent, right? Just like you had the experience with the parent who made the comment to you. You've got to narrow in. She wasn't the parent? Okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, so let's think about what those people look like when we talk about, and when I say look like, I mean psychographics, demographics, you know, what they do, what they read, what their lifestyles consist of. I don't mean what they wear and what, you know, what their color of skin. I mean what they look like in terms of that kind of characterization. What's their ages, what's their incomes. Those are the kinds of things you need to start thinking about, because what the next step is where do we meet these people in the digital space, in the marketing space? And
All, I mean, I think it's across the border. I don't think that there's a specific sexual violation happens like.
oh, it does, but it does. You're absolutely right. There's no, it crosses, but who are more likely to read your book? That's what you are hoping to define.
Parents with kids of a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
So like, is your book for kids who are, you know, under 10 or 10 to 12?
For little ones, but I'm writing different.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe,
This particular one is for age, I'll say 2 to 7.
well, maybe it'll be the parents interacting with the children in the reading of the book. Parents read the book to the children,
Mm-hmm.
explaining exactly to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what interpretate what
Exactly. That could be. That could be. If that's your strategy, that the parents would buy the book and then, you know, actually share that book with the children, or is this something you see more appropriate in a classroom setting?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm writing a teacher manual.
Okay. Okay. Then you've got both a B to E, or, you know, a B to B segment, and then you've got a B to C segment. But keep in mind that each of those, the markets and segments, are going to be communicated to very differently. You're not going to have the same messaging for everybody, right? Because they're going to come, you have to meet them where they're at. Some parents may be resistive to this, even though they may have had that experience in their households or whatever. So we need to figure out, you know, who the parents are, what they do, who is most resistant. Maybe it might start with a survey or something, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Who else? Who else? Let's hear. Anybody else? Did they break down? This is the kind of thing I want to encourage you to do. Did you do yours? You got yours done?
yes, I would say I have a radio audience.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't really know the demographics. I know it could be wide, very wide,
Okay.
age-wide,
Okay.
90.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. But you probably have something that you communicate on the radio that really resonates with certain segments within that broad range, right?
Well, it's usually trendy topics, education topics,
Okay, okay.
television.
Oh, you're on TV. Okay, okay. So we just need to do more drill down, a little more drill down on that and figure it out. And again, keep in mind that we're trying to create the system where you understand where your customer segments are, who they are, where they exist, so that things become repeatable. You're automating. Everything is easy to do. It's not just you constantly with your hand in it. We want to have you work on the business and not in it. When you're scaling up, you want to work on it, meaning you're up here, not in it, in the trenches, doing all the stuff, the marketing, the social media, and all the little, you know, things that need to happen. Things need to start churning on their own as you scale up. Okay?
So you haven't gotten to the scale.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. You're going to go through some of the classes here that the city offers, and you're going to get there. Yeah. But you want to keep this in mind, because it's just not about growth. It's about growing and managing your COGS and also your expenses. So it's about keeping those items consistent. And so when the panelist was here, and I don't remember her name right now, who talked about profit and loss, and it is important to be profitable, but it's important to be profitable based on, what's industry standard, what's going to be important to you when we get back looking. And she didn't talk about all the financials, and that's a whole nother, conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. But looking at the balance sheet, how much profitability is contributing to what's left over in terms of retained earnings. So that's a big piece of that. And so that's probably a 4-hour class by itself. So, but yeah, so those are the kinds of things you want to think about. And I'm going real fast through here, but effective marketing strategy. We want to keep our strategy top of our game plan. And we think about, who our persona is, the appropriate marketing channels, where we meet these people, whether they're on TikTok or Instagram. Most of my clients are on LinkedIn, so I do a lot on LinkedIn. I work on the Sales Navigator side. I have somebody who helps me with lead gen on LinkedIn. Most of my clients are going to be professional business owners who've been in business for a lot of years. So my people are on LinkedIn, so I'm doing a lot of lead nurturing and InMail, using InMail. He uses InMail. Yes, sir. There are retail. There's some retail folks on there. Yeah. There are more. There retail and services. It's a combination. Educators. Anybody else use LinkedIn to do what's your experience with LinkedIn?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. So LinkedIn is what I use, but I'm saying that to say you need to understand where your channels are. And so when you have a better sense of your customer, you can start plugging people in appropriately, right? And then develop that content that we need to have you develop, okay? Talking about selling, very, very, very important. I can't tell you, how important it is to have a sales infrastructure. And that sales infrastructure can be centered around, something like a pipe drive, a CRM. You've got sales people, you've got a sales plan, you've got goals, you've got sales metrics. All of this stuff helps you scale up because it's stuff that you will look back at and say, am I meeting the goals that I need to get to X, margin or X percent or X revenue or whatever it is. So these are the kinds of things you need to start thinking about. Sales plan is critically important. And again, something that's documented. You need a documentable plan. I don't want this, let's call so-and-so, let's see what they got, if they got any work for us. We need a plan that actually proactively brings business into, or leads or prospects into your business, on a regular basis, on a routine basis. Anybody doing any kind of sales planning? Working in any kind of way? Yes.
Can you take a step back and tell us a little bit more in detail what a CRM is?
Yeah, customer relationship management system. Anybody using CRM at all in their business? CRM? Go back. Well, I don't think I put it on here yet, but so CRM is something that allows you to track on a platform, on a software platform, activity around your leads. Okay, and Pipedrive is something I use most often with my clients. Salesforce is another one. Some people just use a regular old Excel spreadsheet, but nobody else is using anything? Nobody else is? Oh, okay, so she's got it in her e-commerce, okay. Yeah, and it helps you, the analytics are there, but it also helps you find where your prospect is in that lead generation piece. Where am I at with this particular person? I'd send them an email. I haven't heard from them. You're not digging through all your old emails to find it. You've got it popping up in your system based on whatever your email cadence is, so that you will know when to follow up. Okay, and so that's why it's critical to your work in scaling up. You've got things that are running from an automated kind of position. So that's why we need a sales plan. Revenue, we need to start thinking about what are our goals? How much money do we need to make? How many of you know how much money you need to make every year? How much revenue? Anybody have any idea? Hands up. What do you need to make this year? What do you need, what needs to happen? Anybody?
When you say how much money we need to make per year, in terms of to be able to make the bills, to be able to do what?
That's just, make the bills, make profit, it's up, yeah.
Quit your regular job with this, your permanent job, to move out to Maui? I mean, it's like,
Ideally, you want to hit, some benchmarks that meet industry standards, to be honest with you. So that's the first, that's a starting point. Then you want to start scaling up. So scaling up, looking at what it's going to take to keep those expenses and costs maintained, but continue to grow revenue. So every year, your revenue projections should be increasing. Every year, they should be increasing. Okay. Anybody have any ideas about what they're going to make this year? This is one of the biggest things entrepreneurs don't do. They don't plan revenue. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, honestly, I think that I am a part-time entrepreneur, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, in that viewpoint, ideally, I may have the best business plan in the world, but implementing it is not reality for me because that takes funding and financing. To be able to leave my constant income stream of another job
Yes.
and do entrepreneurship.
Yes.
100%.
Got it.
And that's where the transformation, I think, may be an issue. It is an issue in our community. We don't really receive the financing to do this 100% of the time. We're not worried about.
Well, but the plan, yeah, and the planning is critical. The planning is critical and understanding, planning that revenue out, but then having that sales plan that is directing your goals too. And so you've got to be able to show, we've got a sales team, and even if that sales team is you and one other person, we're going after this business, and if we have $500,000 we're going to have this year, earn this year, how that's going to look like over the months, month in and month out. If you got some seasonality to your sales, maybe your sales are impacted very heavily at the end of the year. Maybe most of your money comes in the summer, and then you see, gradual kind of up, at the beginning of the year. So these are the things that you really, when we talk about scale, I cannot impress upon you how critically important it is to have these plans in place that are documented where you can actually go back and retrace what's working and what's not working. If you don't have it, you can't speak to whether or not your business is doing well or not. You had your hand up, sir? Right. It is, and those are things we all have to talk about as entrepreneurs. What are we going to do? Are we revisiting our pricing strategy on our products and services? Are we cutting back something? Are we going to reduce some of our expenses? How are we going to make our ends meet? And so those are things you're going to have to start looking at. Are we adding a new revenue stream? Yeah. Are we adding a whole new revenue stream to bring in? But then when we talk about adding a revenue stream, are we maintaining our margins? Do we have to hire another person to come in to do that? So, these are things we have to balance, and that takes some critical analysis as well. We have to do some kind of mapping out to make sure that this makes sense financially. Yes. Sure. Well, these are things we have to plan for, and we have to think about, again, we didn't get into the balance sheet side of the financials. That's where we know what's owed and what's owned, and the reality is you don't want to have debt on your books. You can have all the revenue in the world and still be heavy loaded down in debt. And you don't want debt on your books. And this is how we maneuver through these crises times. And those who got through COVID-19 and were able to kind of stay afloat were those who did not have debt. The businesses that were sinking and drowning in a lot of debt, really were the ones who were challenged. But when we get to the balance sheet, which is the most critical part of the equation, is where we need to understand, what we owe and what we own, and really that debt piece is where you need to kind of try to manage. Yes, ma'am?
I think also too, I'm noticing that the businesses that went under during COVID, those businesses that was like definitely that was about entertainment, like Party City.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that all went away, yeah, the hospitality and parties, yeah.
So
Mhm.
because there was nobody obviously doing any type of, parties or celebrations or anything, so they went under. However, the businesses like Amazon, delivering stuff, they went, to the roof.
Oh, yeah, because we were at quarantine, yeah.
I think that it was more than just, debt or not owing debt and stuff. I think it was also looking at the type of.
Well, there's certainly the type of business, the industry, certainly.
When I had my business, I had a culture boutique for 5 years. One of the things that I was always stuck with was like when to invest, like how much inventory
Mm.
to purchase and bid, and is that done like through the sheet? Would you figure that out through your?
Well, you need to, yeah,
Very hard time with
right. Did you have a bookkeeper who was helping you with that? Because
I did not. I was
okay.
the bookkeeper and the worker. And
Oh, okay, so, yeah, we need that's what we have bookkeepers for, to help, kind of give you some sense of what your inventory levels should be based on cash flow, right? So these are things you need to hire a bookkeeper for that kind of review. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
What I hear you saying, if you don't have a financial plan, there's no way you can access how much you made, how much you spent.
No. If you have a financial plan?
If you don't have a thorough financial plan, there's no way of keeping track of what you spent, how much you made.
Well, yeah, and someone said earlier, even I don't know if it was the last lady who said an Excel sheet works well if you can keep track of things in Excel, if you know Excel pretty well. QuickBooks is good to use if you have anybody using QuickBooks or anything. Yeah, QuickBooks is a good tool as well, but you want to start looking at your historical sales. And just, I think somebody alluded to, the bank and all that, what they're looking at. If you want to take out a loan, venture capital will look at the same thing. They want to see your historical sales. They want to see what money so you got to, the stuff needs to be documented. You've got to have it somewhere. So it'd be good to start, if you aren't using a tool like a QuickBooks, you need to start that. And I would say, get that set up with a bookkeeper. Yeah, go ahead and start with a bookkeeper, and then you check in with the bookkeeper once a quarter. Okay? All righty. Thank you, guys. You know what? I'm going to have to stop here, unfortunately. It's 4:30, and I couldn't continue, but I will leave the deck, and if you guys want to have it, I can certainly make sure it's available, and I will email it. I think Tiffany, I emailed it to Tiffany, so she can, yeah, and I'm sorry, just we got delayed. We got backed up. Just to kind of close out, I'm just gonna, this is an example of looking at revenue goals. This is a great, and I'll leave this again. This is a really good one. We looked at Tiffany's hair salon. Identify your revenue streams. Understand where your money is coming from. Tiffany does hair care, retail. She's got online. She's got consults. She's also a stylist, and she's got booth renters, right? So she's got all these wonderful revenue streams, and she says, I want to earn $500,000 next year. So she's looking at what she needs to sell. This is easy stuff you can do. This math you can do yourself. You start with your revenue streams, and I think it's on the little homework page I gave you, and then you start mapping out where your money's gonna come from, and then how you're gonna go after it. If we didn't hit it, now her revenue is 420 based on this very simple worksheet or math. But if she wants to hit $500,000, she needs to go back and say, where can I go and make some increases in sales? And what do I need to do? How do I need to reach more people? What needs to happen here? This is the kind of thing I want to see all of you do, okay? Every year. And every quarter, you're going to go back and revisit all of this to make sure you're on track, because you need to make sure your numbers are going to meet this $500,000. We're already in the fourth quarter, right? We're at the end of the year. So hopefully, you know what your targets are, and if you're short, what's going to happen in the fourth quarter to make up that differential, okay? Look at this, work this one out. If you don't do anything else, work this out. Yes, it is. All right. Thank you. Namaste.